We sincerely apologize for the extremely late start to the RPL Tier 2 stream here, folks. We're here for Qatar, and it should be a fun event. With that being said, George and Redfire are the only two who remain in championship contention here tonight for Qatar, round 9 of the season. And it's not our first time here at the circuit. We debuted here in F123 for the season opener of Season 9, and now we're here for what could be a title-deciding night. Welcome along, folks. I'm your commentator, Ryan Searles, and alongside me tonight is Polish Hammer. We'll get him introduced in just a moment. But last week in Imola, just to get you guys recapped, we had a race there where George won by a massive margin and also got his first pole of the season. Redfire did not have the best of races. He had to come from behind, so did Gagi. Both of them had qualifying bans. So now George, for the first time this season, Polish, with a 15-point lead, we're going to see him on defense compared to offense. We're going to see Redfire on offense compared to defense.
That we are. George taking a good sizable lead after the Imola Grand Prix. Just a fantastic race by George all around. No one had anything for him that entire race.
And yesterday's Tier 3 winner was Alex Norris for the first time. That was great to see. Quite a chaotic race, in fact.
Yeah, being part of
Alex Norris with his first win.
Yeah.
After not having a podium, you were saying?
I was going to say, being part of that race, it was definitely chaotic. Obviously, EA and Codemasters having a moment with cars going through the track and cars just being stopped on the track randomly. And it was just a chaotic race, but, you know, Alex got through all the chaos, so fair play to him.
And we did have this championship, the Constructors, that can also be clinched tonight as well. We'll get through later on in that before lights out. Hopefully we have a good enough delay to cover that. So here are some of our drivers in the lineup that we don't usually have in the lineup tonight. Because of Polo God going to back to Haas, we have Mentaki in the Ferrari tonight. The Titan Man is in the Red Bull, reserving. It's his second start. And we have Goatley reserving in the RB. Night Owl up to the Mercedes for tonight. Matt Z in the Aston. Neski from Tier 3 in the Aston as well. Fulls down to the Aston, as we mentioned last week. Ardell on loan. Torn Penguin in the Sauber. Wrecked by Storm, Tier 3 driver in the Sauber. Zora in the AlphaTauri, or the V-Carb, excuse me. You know, everything that has gone wrong today in the later stages definitely has gone wrong. So, yeah, so my apologies on that, folks. That's why we're here a little late, as we've mentioned already. We got our final laps of qualifying starting right now. Our only other headlines that we can tell you is no more time trial submissions. Mifa Maestro has a full-time seat in Sauber to finish out the season. He's not here tonight, and he has a full-time seat at Haas next season, with that being said as well. I've not got this headset fixed, but I'm going to have to wear it incredibly uncomfortable. So my apologies if this falls off at any point during the stream. But we now have our final flying lap starting, and Polish Hammer, we're not really going to get to cover what this track is like, but I can tell you right now, we're going to have a lot of track limit penalties tonight. Fuel could be a concern, and we're going to have our usual DRS train here in this race. Mentaki currently sits on pole position.
We are here in Qatar. You get a lot of close racing. You get a lot of... You really have to manage your fuel.
Oh, hold on. If you don't mind me cutting you off for just a moment, Redfire Tiger has missed the checkered flag.
That is unfortunate. He's going to be starting 7th, or possibly worse if he has everyone apart from Nevsky and Recht behind him on a flyer right now. He's definitely going to get overtaken. It could be pushed down, maybe outside the top 10.
Well, a qualifying session we've not been a part of for quite a bit is going to see quite an uncharacteristic ending, with already our championship contender down in 7th. Crossing the line now is Polo God, returning to Haas. Just a little bit of an improvement from him, just marginally. We have other cars crossing the line. We're going to look at our championship contenders. Look at that, 1,000th off of pole position from Night Owl. Wavy Knife is down in 11th for McLaren. That's not what they need whatsoever. The Titan Man will cross the line in his second start. Can he go pole? He'll have Goggy next. The Titan Man just misses out. That's four drivers under a 10th right here. Goggy had a very big mishap coming out of the final corner, and he will miss out on pole position. Or will he? No, it's a little bit of a delay. And regardless, George Up Williams takes it at the last moment. He'll go 2 in a row.
That was a great
George Up Williams.
That was a great
snuck it in.
That was a great sector through by George. He was only 300th up coming out of the second sector. He needed to have a big third sector to get pole. That's exactly what he did.
And he does it at the time he needs it most for the sake of the championship. That's a great one from George Up Williams, picking up career pole number 5 there for him. Last week it was his first of the season, and also a drought that was broken since season 9, but now he's gone back to back. How about that for George Up Williams, who could wrap up the title tonight? Red Fire's down in 9th, crucially. So here's your starting order. George Up Williams had a blue Goggy. Mintaki is in 3rd. Both them two raced in a league race earlier this week in Qatar in a different league. Night Owl, Titan Man, they round out the top 5. We got Danny, Goatley, Foles, Red Fire, and Neski running out the top 10. Neski and Goatley, 2 Tier 3 drivers up there. And outside of our top 10, Wavy Knife for McLaren, Polo for Haas. That's a bit of a surprise considering what he's done for Haas before. Ardell, Storm, and Zora, the 3 Canadians at the tail end of the field, not getting the best of laps there. But Red Fire, championship contender, down in 9th. That is not good stuff. And also, McLaren have a car back there with Wavy Knife.
And I don't know if you
noticed. Not good stuff at all.
And I don't know if you noticed, but we had the top 5 cars all within a 10th of each other. The first 1 through 5 all within 1/10. So this is shaping up to be a very, very close race.
Yeah, and you know what that means? The DRS train will just be even more effective if those top 5 are the way they are. You did have an echo a little bit ago, but you have fixed that, so I'm glad to I'm glad to know that. But we will have a completely dry race on hand. It really never rains here.
And I am in a car.
Qatar. You'll just have to retire at the end of lap 1.
Lovely.
But you know what? We get a good view because of that. Yeah, just stay out of the way. I think you pressed join session instead of spectate. That's why. It does happen. So I see on our screens from the drivers, you can actually give me a countdown, which is great. Just don't ready up early. That'll be great. So medium hards looks to be the strategy tonight. The fuel will be a big thing for the drivers as well. You do still have an echo, by the way.
Oh, what the?
And
I fix it. Oh my god.
And with that being said, track limits. You'll hear it so much throughout tonight's event. Because in the Tier 1 race here, our first Tier 1 race, we had an incredible amount of track limit penalties. I think we only ended the race with 4 or 5 drivers without any track limit penalties. So here are our standings, by the way. 3rd to 5th, who are out of championship contention, 6 points separate them. 15 points separate Red Fire and George. George out on top for the first time this season, trying to pull off the largest comeback in RPL history. Well, driver standings history, because we did have a constructors fight overturned crazily in F2 before. And Mercedes and McLaren, 53 points separate them. Here we go for the penultimate round. The 5 red lights are coming on here in Qatar. Who's going to be the rock star tonight in Qatar? The 5 red lights are on now, and we're away. It's time to bring the action here. And you could already see 3rd through 7th there on the left side of the grid. Now right side got all squirmishy, but it's all happening behind race leader George Up Williams. You see Blue Goggy is having a bit of lag, and that's troubling for him. I really wonder, has he lagged out of the session or not? He's been overtaken by Night Owl. Red Fire's not gaining any places, so right now, if the race were to end, the title goes to George Up Williams, and that's a Ferrari hitting the bullard. That's Danny, and out of this race is Blue Goggy. Blue Goggy has been retired by the game. It's a game glitch, the 2nd day in a row for Red Bull, and it's catastrophic again for the team that has won 10 Constructors Championships in Tier 2.
It's sad to see that this game glitch has been happening so recently. We had it last week in Miami with me. We had it yesterday with a couple of cars, actually. And now we have it again today with Goggy. I don't know what's been going on.
His internet was awful, we know, but you know, he left the session to try and maybe rejoin, or he left the session because he lagged out. But crucially, That's 2 places for Red Fire Tiger. 2 for Foles, 2 for Goatley, 2 for Night Owl, 3 for Wavy Knife Man, Polo God, 5 for Zora. That's an incredible start from the Canadian. So, we have Matt Z down 2 and Danny down 2. Those are our drivers who've lost out majorly on the opening lap. We now see our tires. George Alp Williams is in control of this race, while the DRS gets enabled down the main street. We'll get that next time. We got a big movement between the Alpine and the Mercedes. Red Fire Tiger needs these places. He'll gain 1 by forcing the Alpine to go the long way around now, having the inside line for turn 2. They were making tons of contact. They're still making contact, leaning off one another. This is where George costed himself of a Tier 2 championship just 4 seasons ago with Florian, making contact twice. Luckily, Red Fire kept himself in this race. Polish Hammer, you know, I know you accidentally were in a car, but I can tell you, you made it longer in the race than Gagi, even though you weren't meant to be.
I was just about to say that, yeah. I actually beat Gagi this race, which is actually incredible. Gagi got beat by a commentator. That's pretty embarrassing. No offense to him, obviously.
Well, well, we got a lot of stuff happening here at the back of the field between Torn Penguin, Ardell, and Matt Z. They're all trying to stay in the DRS train. Remember, this DRS train is third on back, so it will be crucial for those guys to keep their head in it and make sure they remain calm. For Blue Gagi, it's very unfortunate his internet was going that way, and it just cost him maybe a chance at a race victory. I know he had a lot of confidence from that when he got in a different league in Qatar earlier in the week.
If I could just cut in here, the game did not retire Gagi. He did it on his own because he said he was lagging a little bit. He didn't want to kill anybody, so he retired it on his own.
Well, that's retiring on track, technically, so that might be against the rules and maybe looked at. But meanwhile, Night Owl, and only a second Tier 2 start, takes over the lead of the race. The Australian is looking great right now at the front of this field in the Mercedes. Neski is giving Polo God a fight. We also have Ardell in a fight here with Matt Z. And I actually got to give a lot of credit to Zora. He seems to be very good in these short runs, needing a lot of safety cars. I mean, yes, he's fallen back 2 seconds from the pack, but a great start from the V-Carb and Canadian.
Really good start from the V-Carb. Another good start we have on the track is Alpine of Foles. He had a very good race in Imola, finished inside the top 5, started second, and he is having another good showing here in an Alpine, which is not necessarily the fastest car, but he's making the most of it.
It really goes to show his performance in Zandvoort in his first start just over a month ago was not a fluke whatsoever. I mean, this season has definitely had quite a few droughts broken, and I'll tell you right now, we've not had an Alpine win in RPL in any tier. Tier 2, we've not had any at all, but in any tier, we've not had, an Alpine. Actually, we did have an Alpine win in Tier 2. We had one in Season 7. I was thinking of something different, but meanwhile, Ardell gets a penalty. I was just going to say with Alpine, speaking of an Alpine getting a penalty there, they've not had a win in any RPL tier since Season 8 F1, end of F1 22. So that'd be another big drought in this season broken if we had that happen. Wavy Knife passes Danny, Neski passes Polo, Matt Z passes Zora, and so does Ardell, but the race lead has been retaken by George Alp Williams. This would currently be enough for the title.
Oh, big contact there between the Alpine and the Alfa Romeo back in 12-13. Ardell and Matsu very close to catastrophic proportions right there.
They're all moving around. They just got by Zora. That might have been the Aston, in fact, instead of the Alfa Romeo, or known as Kick Sauber that you're talking about. But George Alp Williams and Night Owl, they are both in the medium tires. Mentaki is trying to do the revert strategy. She's on the hard compound tires. Same with the Titan Man. And it looks like Penguin finally has got by Matt Z, but he's trying to have a go back at this. Look at this. Nice little scrap here. Continue it in the S section. Why don't you? How about we back off come the end of the S section, because we know the place has been contested.
And obviously Sauber coming off probably their best showing of the season, running firmly inside the top 10 yesterday at Brazil, both of them, and also getting a podium in the feature.
Yeah, I mean, it really goes to show that, the momentum can continue in some way. It may not be in terms of the results tonight, but maybe winning out on some fights. We'll find out. We have movement into turn 1. Night Owl retakes the lead of the race, and it looks to be the Titan Man going for a big dive to take third place over from Mentaki. Mentaki has had a prior podium, but not with this Ferrari team. She's worked so hard to be able to do this, and she had a good chance to do it in Singapore, but just did not happen. And we got a spin down at turn 1. That is Matt Z, who's been spun around. It looks like there may have been contact between him and the Sauber or the Alpine there in that whole kerfuffle. But we're on to lap 5 of this race, and it's a 7-car fight at the front of our field. Red Fire Tiger is still not out of it.
This is another thing I wanted to talk about before the race, but didn't get a chance. Another thing that is very crucial here is to maintain your ERS usage. The ERS does not like to, it really does not like to regenerate here. But obviously with F124 being able to move around the ERS, you're able to save way better than you were last game. But I know on 23, it was impossible to save ERS on this track.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. I mean, it's not like we've heard it 10 times coming out of the pit lane each race, but it is good to know. I mean, you're right. It is truthful. And it may actually play a big factor in this race. You look at the ERS between the top two. They've got a lot, but maybe you go further back here. I mean, Goatley's not doing a good job of conserving energy, and maybe you could argue Foles the same there, too. Down the main straight, Night Owl is still leading the Grand Prix, and it's only a second start. He won an F2 in his first weekend, and he got a podium last week in his first weekend of Tier 2. Now we got a lot of movement further behind. We also got a lot of movement from the front 3. Night Owl goes from 1st to 3rd, and Red Fire Tiger crucially has gained a spot. Him and Foles overtook Goatley there on the run to turn 1. We have a lot of action at the front, and Night Owl may have just picked up a track limit warning for going off there at turn 3 as well.
There was a little bit of contact there between Foles and Goatley. Goatley almost turned Foles right into the wall there. That was almost catastrophic for that Alpine. But he made it work, and he's nestled in the top 5.
Polo God is our second driver to encounter a track limit penalty. We don't need to see that anymore from the drivers we've already seen have it happen. Ardell and Polo, 2 drivers running outside the points. That could definitely be a big, big difference when it comes to later on in this race. We have 14 of you watching, and just to give you guys an update on the championship standings right now, George would clinch this title over Red Fire Tiger. He would come back from a 58-point deficit that he had with Red Fire being the one with lost ground. Coming back after a 2-season ban of Tier 2, coming back 58 points behind Red Fire, coming back with 3 qualifying bans. I mean, this is just unheard of what George Williams could be doing tonight. But with where Red Fire stands right now, he'd have to win the race. The Titan Man is going to be our 3rd different driver out in front in this race. And Night Owl also takes it as well. He's got 2nd place now. Danny also took a place with Wavy, and that's good for the Constructors' Championship for Mercedes' sake.
I can confirm that Red Fire on that last lap did pick up a warning in Sector 3, so he has to be really careful with those track limits. Obviously, his Achilles heel last week was the penalties. I think he ended with 9 or 12 seconds of penalties, and that really lost him a lot of spots.
With where George is at, right now he's in P3. He would need Red Fire to be P8 or lower if he's got the fastest lap. That's the big thing in this train with George either trading places with these guys in a good or bad manner. So we will find out what happens there. We got a DRS train 8th on back. We have a DRS train in our top 7 places. Goatley is now at the back of that train instead of it being Red Fire Tiger. And for Mercedes' sake, they could win the Constructors' Championship tonight. With what they're doing right now, it is good enough. McLaren need to outscore Mercedes. That's the situation right there. And Mentaki is right over the back of George. These two used to be teammates, and this was the case in George's last Tier 2 race before being banned 2 seasons prior. And we got Danny, our 3rd different driver in the penalty club.
You gotta wonder, I really like the tire strategy. It seems like we're kind of split down the middle from mediums to hards. You gotta wonder which is gonna work better. I know the undercut here is pretty insane, so I have to imagine that the medium tires might, the people that are on the mediums right now, might have the upper hand.
If you don't mind me mentioning, Red Fire Tiger, with a ballsy lunge, has taken over 5th place in this race. He's saying, I may have qualified bad, George, but it's not over yet. You cannot count yourself out of this. Mentaki was looking for a mover on the outside of George Williams, but the overtake was not on right there. I see a lot of different opinions in the Twitch chat, and I'll tell you right now, I can confirm what JTK said. We will be racing here tomorrow, not only just for F1, but for F2 as well. So it's a full weekend of Qatar, and the same thing will be done next week in Abu Dhabi for Tier 2, F2, and F1. Zora, kind of to put a pun with his name, is having a war with the penalties right now. He's got his first.
We still have this 7-car train back here. Goatley bringing up the rear. Goatley is almost lost that train, so it's looking like it could be a 6-car train at this point. I do like what Redfire is doing, though. He is just being patient, staying by the train, doing what he's got to do, picking off positions one by one as he's going to look to take it away from Mintoki here.
Gagi and JTK are in the voice chat with Polo God helping him out. So Gagi still being supportive to a good mate of his, even though he's out of this Grand Prix. And speaking of Polo, the Academy teammate, the car he was in last week, has just overtaken George for third. George has now been put vulnerable to Redfire Tiger. We'll talk about that in a bit. That could be crazy. Wavy Knife has gotten overtaken, and so has Ardell down the main straight. George up Williams. You got to really wonder here with him losing ground. Is he just losing a bit of tire life, Polish, on the mediums, or is he just saving everything right now to go longer and then make it work later on?
I can't imagine he's losing too much because you've got Night Owl on the mediums in front of him that's doing just fine. So I can't imagine he's losing too much grip on those mediums. I think he's just playing it safe, knowing, hey, it's only lap 9. The race has barely even started yet. I can just stay in this train, stay in the DRS, just do my own race, because right now, really, track position isn't going to matter as much, but I think he's just kind of taking it calm, not really worrying about it right now. He's not going to get into an unnecessary battle and possibly wreck himself out.
Someone else has got to stay calm. Polo God, you got to keep yourself in control of your own car. Don't look at the Twitch chat while we're racing. Our race leader there at the penultimate turn went very wide and may have got a track limit warning for it. Regardless, he's been backed into Night Owl just a little bit. I mean, the gap is 5/10, but you got to think there that could have affected things. Mintoki is going for 2 and 1. Look at this to take the lead of the race. Night Owl may have just lost out there in what could have been the lead.
What an absolutely gorgeous move there.
And it's still not done. Wheel to wheel. Turn 2, turn 3 we go. Night Owl leads.
We were wondering when they were going to start to get racy. It looks like now might be the time.
Just don't get argy-bargy. That's all I hope, really. You know, we want to see everyone still in this fight and race it out quite heavily. Look at this. George F. Williams is being pressurized by his championship rival. Redfire Tiger's on the move, but he's boxed in, and they collide. The two contenders have come together. Redfire tried to cut across there as the Titan Man came across him. He was getting boxed in. Luckily, nothing race ending there, but there could be damage. George F. Williams has taken over fourth.
That was almost catastrophic. Titan trying to come back on the track, and Redfire was just not ready for it. That was almost catastrophic for our two contenders right here.
That's how other people can put themselves in this championship fight and start to affect things. Goatley has got a 3-second for good measure. We're going to find out what can be effective and what cannot be effective for these penalties later on. Meanwhile, for a race lead, Mintoki wants it back. The Titan Man wants to go as well with it. Here comes the Titan Man on the inside, side by side. It's 2 and 1 for him this time. Zora has got another penalty to his name. These drivers are really struggling with track limits outside of our DRS train here, but the Titan Man has put it into a 5-car kerfuffle now as Foles and Goatley have lost touch.
You gotta wonder, again, like I said, we were wondering when they were gonna start to get racy, and it looks like now they're finally starting to bounce position. You gotta wonder, maybe pit stops are gonna be looming in for these medium tire users. You gotta wonder if they're just trying to get as much track position as they can before they have to go to pit.
I got to remind people about George F. Williams' history here in Qatar. In the first race we ran here in the season opener on F123, we had George F. Williams in contention for the victory, and he actually got DDoSed, which costed him a victory. He still finished on the podium, but that was very crazy, that race in season 9. His teammate Owen came from the qualifying ban and came through the field. So although you don't see too much overtaking at this circuit, it is possible. So that's why Redfire Tiger has been able to claw his way back through the field. You're right, we will see pit stops soon. But also, George F. Williams, a season later in this race, also collided with Florian twice. The first time was in the first 10 laps, getting him to the back of the field. He recovered, and then after that, he collided with Florian again. It wasn't the first time they collided during that season, but that ultimately gave him a very slim chance in Brazil to win the title, and he's now being overtaken by his championship rival, Redfire Tiger, once again. He'll concede the place, back off quite a bit, George, and he'll realize Redfire Tiger went very wide there, and he doesn't really need to do a whole lot here because, as I said, Polish, it's really George on defense this time for the first time this season, rather than it being Red Fire.
Yeah, George is doing exactly what he needs to do. He's obviously losing positions, but at this rate, it's really not.
Oh! Into the kitty litter! The Sauber and Alpine go. They came together. That's Ardell and Penguin.
Big collision there between the Sauber and the Alpine. You gotta wonder.
It looks like they just connected wheels at turn 2. I mean, I don't think that would have been a normal collision, but that's on the game physics. Night Owl went wide. He gives the place up to Red Fire, his teammate.
I was just going to mention, we were talking about the track limit penalties and how they might come into play here. We only have 3 warnings between the entire top 6. Foles, Night Owl, and Red Fire have all only picked up one warning each, so the penalty is not necessarily coming into play. Obviously, it is still early, as we got the McLaren going into pit.
You got to make sure you get it in quite easily without any contact. Foles ran into his teammate right there while trying to get it in. And you also got to make sure you stay within the white lines, which has been changed for this game compared to last game. The pit lane entry. In our race here last season, we had the lead swap hands early for a little bit, and then everything got distanced. We'll find out what happens when these guys do all cycle out. But in the meantime, Mentaki has regained the lead of this race, and she's looking for career win number 1. It would also be Ferrari's 2nd win on the season as well, if that were to be the case. Mentaki, Gagi, and JTK all did a race here earlier in the week in a different league that I paid close attention to, because I realized, look, we got Qatar on the calendar, not just for 1, not just for 2, but 3 races this weekend. And one thing I paid close attention to is that if you don't have any warnings, like it was the case for Mentaki, which I think the field should be really concerned about if she doesn't have any. She didn't have any in that race until very late on in the Grand Prix. If you're in a situation where you're in a battle like this, you could use up a warning. There's nothing against it, but you cannot exceed track limits before then, and I think she almost did that. Maybe got a warning for it.
I can confirm she did not get a warning for it. She is still sitting on 0 warnings right now.
There you go. So she definitely ended up getting away with that one. Yep, that's the first of the Mercedes pair to pit. George Williams and Foles come out behind Torn Penguin, but remember, if there's anybody who doesn't pit now, they've got to make sure they make amends of them and get by quickly. I got to give a good shout out though to our Tier 3 full-time driver in the Mercedes, Neski. He's in the Aston tonight, running quite well behind FX7 Danny here at the 2nd train, still on the points, and that's really good for a car that usually is in the bottom end of the points, but he's doing exactly what's needed in a tier he's not full-time in. It looks like Night Owl has got out ahead of George there, so the Mercedes teammate of Red Fire is going to help him out if need be.
Mentaki really put a really big gap on Titan going into the 3rd sector. She was almost a full second ahead. And so I gotta wonder, she's probably running way more wings than the Red Bull and the Mercedes both are, but she's really putting a gap on them, so she definitely has more raw pace.
Only 2 podiums she's had. She had 1 last season at one point during the season. I believe that was early on. I want to say it was. Yeah, it was in Austria, and then a podium in Bahrain. On that same podium, both times, I believe there was a Ferrari up there. And that's the car she's in. Yeah, there was a Ferrari up there. First, it was J&T, the champion that season. Then it was, I believe it was Dil JG in Austria, that race where it was another F1 game glitch at the end there with the timing boards. But meanwhile, the top 3 remains close. Neski remains close with Danny. And down what's going to be the main street here, we're going to have a battle between our net leaders. There was yellow flags a moment ago. Did you pick up who that was?
Yes, it was Penguin going slow on the track. Can we have another caution? Ardell? Maybe?
Zora.
No?
Zora. Yep. George Williams gets the upper edge on Night Owl. And Ardell is in. Ardell going to medium compound tires. It's going to be our first of the medium guys in. Guys and girls, because remember, Mentaki leads this race and will be going to the medium tires when she is ready. That will be the big advantage Red Fire and Mentaki will have for the chance at winning the race and also winning the championship or the championship points. And yeah, that is not good. That'll help out George. but now it does mean for sure with Night Owl having this penalty, Polish, and you know this quite well, it will definitely disrupt George a bit if Night Owl fights in this. He won't be getting the place, but it will allow someone like Foles to overtake if possible. But that's an Academy teammate. I don't expect that to happen.
No, and you know Night Owl, he's not really worried about that penalty. He's going to fight George because, as you know, his teammate, obviously, championship contenders, the Red Bull's going for the lead here on Mintoki and gets it done.
Changing the top 2 spots. The Titan man, in his first start at Spain, he got crashed out of the race in a collision with Lennon. This time, he's making sure when he changes spots that he's having a lot of room be given. You saw him dip to the right quite heavily there. Down the main straight, Night Owl will try and retake this place on George. But remember, when the penalties do get applied post-race, it will be George's place. And, you know, it's really textbook here that Foles is just staying behind George, Polish. He's staying behind George and doing the same thing he did at Imola and trying to give his teammate any assist possible for the sake of this championship.
Yeah, if we had a award for best teammate, it would definitely go to Foles. Pretty much just handed George that way. I'm not saying George wouldn't have won without Foles' help, but it definitely didn't hinder him for sure. But Foles is just pretty much everything you could want from a teammate.
I think George still would have won that race last week, Polish, but the thing that I found interesting was when we went to the pit stop gaps, George had actually been undercut, but he had not been overtaken while being undercut, so that was really the difference there. George had a lot of pace last week, and he really used it. It looks like he's using it again. Off to the pits, Red Fire Tiger goes. He'll blink first of these 3 yet to pit for the medium tires, and once again, Mintoki leads this race. She'll re-inherit the race lead on lap 17 out of 29.
I'm really curious to see how those fresh mediums are going to fare with the fresh hards. Obviously, you know, the DRS train, the hards were able to kind of stick with the mediums. I'm not sure what the better tire is on this track. I haven't really done any testing with it, but really curious to see if these medium users can get back up there.
Side-by-side action down the main straight as Red Fire Tiger comes out. Night Owl has been overtaken not just by 1, but by 2 cars into turn 1. Red Fire Tiger, look at him up the road. He is a second and more clear of George Alp Williams. That is very crucial considering the tire he's on. Night Owl's gonna fight this back and just gets cut off there by Foles. Down to turn 4 we go. We're about to collide here, and we almost do. Foles keeps it straight.
How did they not crash? Unbelievable save. Unbelievable.
I mean, they did, but they just kept it straight. They kept going. Rolled out a DRS with George, by the way. Keep that in mind.
Foles was like 90 degrees facing towards the wall. I cannot believe he saved that car. That was incredible.
I mean, he was sideways once, and he was sideways a second time trying to keep it going. Our top 2 are in, and Polo God, I thought that was going to be a speeding penalty from Mintoki, but Polo God got a track limit penalty for good measure. He's just not having the best of times down on 11th, but I'm sure he's more comfortable with that car compared to the Ferrari. And Foles is just hounding the back of Night Owl still. They're in opposite spots this time. Look at this. He's just giving a bunch of bumps here into the corner. Whoa! Whoa! We're going to crash again! Foles is off the road. Night Owl really got aggressive there. You said, Polish, when is the argy-barginess, the raciness going to happen? We got racy, and we got very argy-bargy. Red Fire Tiger leads the race! He undercut him! That is huge. That is huge for Red Fire Tiger.
More contact! The Mercedes is off the road. Night Owl's in the kitty litter.
I was just about to look at our battle for second, which I thought we're going to see the same thing what we saw a lap ago between Night Owl and Foles, but this time with Titan Man and Mintoki, but luckily that didn't happen. I'm sorry to miss that, but Night Owl is down to 10th. I mean,
I'm very shocked with how much the overcut was. The mediums were able to get out almost, actually, more than 2.5 seconds in front of George, so this is catastrophic.
But it's crucial they save their tires.
Yeah.
Gotta do that.
Yeah,
I mean, they've pulled 2 seconds on George. I thought it'd be like a second, maybe half a second, maybe 1.5 at most. It was 2 seconds when Red Fire Tiger came out. And by the way, our live standings, sorry, Polish, our live standings, we'd have Red Fire Tiger beating George in this race by 13 points. With the fastest lap, you'd make it 12 points. That's a 3-point gap into Abu Dhabi.
incredible. And George, I don't really know what more he could do. He's on an island of his own, and you have these three that are going to be DRSing off of each other. He's going to have to hope that they just start getting
Three wide.
racing.
Kentucky is in the lead again, and we almost have a collision down to turn 1. The Titan Man and Red Fire Tiger almost come together right there.
And look who's going to benefit, Mintoki.
Whoa, hold on. We had the Red Bull go off the road. He's back on, but they're both at a DRS. You were saying?
I was going to say, look who's benefiting from this. Mintoki out to a full 1.2 second lead up in front of these two, but this is exactly what George was hoping for.
I was just going to say, Night Owl's not having a great time with the McLaren / Alpine Academy. He just got by Wavy, and, well, he had to make that overtake right there. But Mercedes will definitely be winning the Constructors tonight, but definitely not without a bit of controversy with the two academies there. You said, what else could George do? I mean, the only thing really Foles did for him there is race it out with Night Owl, and he's got another penalty to his name. Zora speeds in the pit lane there. That could be a race-ending moment, and it is. He has given up from the Grand Prix. It's just not been his day. He had a good lap 1. That's something to be happy about, but just not good after that. Yeah, Night Owl, I don't know what happened with Foles. I don't want to put blame on anybody, but they got aggressive there the lap before they actually ended up colliding in turn 2, but it just got quite nasty there. And it does help out George, in fact, because there's no pressure from Night Owl trying to interfere. Red Fire Tiger takes over second, and Mentelke takes over the fastest lap.
Although I'm not really sure if this is helping George. We were at 2.5 seconds behind third. George is now 4.2 seconds. He's lost almost 2 seconds to that front pack, just in a lap.
But he can still finish 4th, and it's not over for him. He's just got to rely on Abu Dhabi here. I mean, that's really going to be the case there. Neski is in 7th now. And I think this is really the only guy who can disrupt the whole thing with George there in 4th. Danny can pass him, but is he going to get out to a 3-second gap? Maybe, but that would require George getting a penalty there. The only way I see Danny beating George, at least besides on track.
I'm honestly not sure. Case, Danny is really catching up, really like outpacing George completely on those mediums. Yeah. He's caught him like almost
George has lost a lot of time in the top 3. You're right.
Yeah,
well,
George
here's
is
what I'll
really
say.
Flowing.
Here's what I'll say, though, Polish. I know Foles will not overtake George here, and we know why. It's reasonable, and that's understandable. As we get to the last third of this race, Danny really, I think, needs George to get a penalty if he wants to get him fair and square here and throughout everything. I think George is really just having a fight for his life with whatever's happening here. It's just not, besides qualifying, it does not seem like a McLaren track right now.
No, it doesn't. This is more suited to those Ferraris that just have incredible straight line speed. Because obviously there are a lot of straights on this corner and a lot of fast-paced corners. So these, as you can see, with Mintoki and Danny both nestled inside the top 5, this is a Ferrari track right here.
Red Fire Tiger really needs to set himself up for the finish because he's only outscoring George by 3 points right now. And he had the lead when Mintoki and the Titan Man came out, but the one-lap fresher tires paid big dividends to those two. I don't know why Red Fire Tiger has lost the time he has, but we're looking at a potential first-time winner with this current top 2, and maybe a championship-saving win for Red Fire Tiger if he does win, because George is just in no man's land with the way things stand. This DRS train, if he doesn't be careful, might overtake him, but Foles could do a really, really big favor and just hold him off. Danny really could pull a 3-second gap here, but he has to overtake George now. And he might not even need a 3-second gap if George is struggling with track limits. You'll have to help me on that situation, but it seems like developing stuff. He's lost another second this lap to the top 3.
That's actually what I was just going to chime in and say. George is sitting on 1 warning, but what I really want to talk about is that top 3. Titan sitting on 2 warnings. Red Fire sitting on 2 warnings. You know how many warnings Mintoki has? 0. 0 warnings for that Ferrari, but 2 warnings for Red Bull and Mercedes.
For the lead. The Titan Man has it. Mintoki previously had it. Look at Danny. He's now overtaken George. George is down to 5th place on track. He's had podiums in the last 5 straight races. This is uncharacteristic for George. But meanwhile, Wavy Knife has got 9th place, and he could get another place for McLaren's sake in this championship fight. Remember, last week, Ferrari and Red Bull, out of championship contention, it's between McLaren and Mercedes. McLaren has never won a Constructors' title. Mercedes has won twice, I believe. We've got yellow flags in front of our race leader. That is the Kick Sauber who's spun around. That is wrecked by Storm, and he's wrecked it on the track.
I think this just comes down to the hard-medium strategy was the way to go, because even if you look down to 6, Neski is pulling up a gap on Foles and Night Owl in that Aston Martin.
But you'd think George would have more pace than this, though, based on what he's shown being on the opposite strategy in prior races. Is it just not being a part of the DRS train, that being the thing?
I think that really hurts. I think not being part of that DRS train is absolutely crucial. I think being part of the DRS train is absolutely crucial. That's where a lot of pace on this track comes. If you don't have that DRS, there's just no way.
Well, I'll tell you right now, it's going to be settled between the top 3, and we're on to lap 23. And the Titan Man, 1, 2, 3, is looking to have the number 1 spot on lap 23. Ardell is out. He lagged out, and the game retired him. That's the second time we've seen that today. We have big movement due to the lag out from Ardell into turn 1, causing those guys to scatter all over the place. Mintoki just caught off red fire. We're lucky there's no contact there, but Night Owl and Neski look to take on Foles. They do. Here's part 3 of these two coming together, maybe. Night Owl's just not being patient with Foles based on their coming togethers prior, and he's using some battery to go into turn 4 this time. Will we see another move? Will we see another overtake? The answer is no. We'll set ourselves up for turn 6, though.
Danny has not been able to pull up that gap on George. George is still staying in that DRS, so I wonder if Danny's pace is starting to fall off a little bit, and maybe those cars are starting to come into their forte, if you will.
I was really surprised by the overcut from the mediums, though. That was really, really big.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know if I don't know if them staying on the DRS train like they did after the pit stops from George and Foles and Night Owls really played help to them, but that was definitely a game-changing moment for this top 3 to settle it amongst themselves. And, I mean, for Mintoki, you know, I know I keep talking about this league race her and Gagi did in IRS on Tuesday. No, it's not the tax company, but it is the league race that they did end up racing in Qatar earlier in the week. And look at this, 3 wide, 3 abreast into turn 1. This is getting hectic. And it's Red Fire Tiger taking back second place. I was just going to say, Mintoki has to feel like it's deja vu with that race. The only difference with that race that I watched and engineered on with her JTK and Gagi is that it was a 4-car fight instead of a 3-car fight. So I think if you're Mintoki, nice voice crack. I think if you're Mintoki, having that in the back of your mind that it is deja vu, you got to feel a little bit more comfortable, Polish, knowing that it's one less car to fight than on Tuesday.
Absolutely, for sure. But I was just going to mention, I feel like everything is kind of playing into Mintoki's lap right now. Mintoki doesn't have a warning. The top 2 both have 2, so the top 2 really need to be careful with these warnings here, because if they get another one, their race is basically over. They're fighting for third at that point. Mintoki is also not really draining the battery, as we see the Mercedes and the Red Bull kind of have been. Mintoki's just kind of been chilling with the battery, not really using it, not really pushing, just waiting for the moment to pounce.
Is that the calm before the storm? That's what I think it could be, really. Red Fire Tiger is the worst one on battery right here, and I'll tell you right now, with the situation with where things stand, I mean, if he wins the race, he sets himself in a good spot for Abu Dhabi. Wrecked by Storm has got a penalty again, and the Titan Man, I have to give a lot of credit to him as well with just 5 laps remaining. Red Bull won this race when we last ran here last season with JTK. Obviously, JTK is the Tier 2 champion. He had to move up, so he's not eligible to race here tonight or win this race at all, but that's big to know that Titan Man can do the same replicator. Yes, George is through. That's the first time we've seen George not be put vulnerable in the last, what, 15 minutes?
Pretty much, yeah. George obviously pretty much out of the fight for the top 3 for the podium, but he can still get 4th. He can still get a good points day, and he will only lose, I think it would be 18, so he'd be only losing 6 points on Red Fire, because, as I do believe, Danny has the fastest lap currently.
The only thing really with Red Fire's case, I think, is that he just does not need to finish 3rd here if he wants to set himself up for Abu Dhabi. Remember, he's on offense compared to George. George is on defense. That's why you see them in this situation here. The Titan Man, the leader, has picked up a penalty. That puts the advantage to Red Fire Tiger, who would take over the lead of the race if we apply the penalties. That will help Mintoki and Red Fire fight it between them two.
That's exactly what I was talking about there with Titan and Red Fire, both on 2 warnings. Red Fire is in the same situation as Titan. If he gets that 3rd warning, this is Mitoki's race to lose.
It really is. And we're looking at a potential first career win for her. And a first career win by a female driver in F1 cars. We've had Valkyrie win 3 times prior, but that came in F2. Now we go to turn 1. Drag race down here. 3 abreast again. How many times are we going to say that? This time, Mitoki does not go for the dive and try and go for 2 and 1. She's going to let Redfire have it and set herself up for the final lap again, but the Titan Man dives it. Big dive bomb. He's pulled it off, but cuts right in front of the Ferrari. It's a big move. A big lunge that almost didn't work out. Luckily, we have no damage on either car.
I was actually gonna question this a few laps ago, but I honestly slipped my mind. When was the last time we had a female winner in RPL?
Whoa! Big slide from Foles. He's kept it straight once again. Great car control from the Alpine. The last time we had a female winner, you'd have to go back to the end of, I believe the end of 2023, when it happened in the Netherlands with Valkyrie holding off Beatnik for the victory in Season 18, F2. Polo God, by the way, pitted moments ago for the softs. So does Matt Z as well. They're going to try and steal fastest lap away from one of their competitors. The Titan Man has it. He also has got a move here in the middle. Final sector now. You don't usually see a move in that area. Incredible stuff. I know he's got a penalty. Ignore that for a second. What a move.
I just took a look at the penalties again. Mitoki is still sitting on 0. She is pulling off just a fantastic race. She is doing everything right. Staying within the track limits.
Redfire 2.
Redfire 2 as well, yeah. He's had that second warning for about 15 laps now, so the fact he's gone 15 laps without getting that third warning is pretty nice.
And he needs to be very careful with that being said. I think that's why you saw when he took the lead earlier on Polish, that's why he was a lot more cautious. George Williams has retaken 4th place, and he'll keep it. He'll keep it regardless right now. I don't think he's got any threat from anybody. Goatley and Wavy also traded spots down the main straight. But it's going to be a 3-car fight, and it really might be the 3-car fight that we see the Titan Man kind of interfere with. It's just a matter of how much we interfere with it. Look at that!
Redfire got in a little too deep there and got into the left rear quarter panel of Titan. That was almost catastrophic for that Mercedes.
I don't know if he's just putting it in none or what's going on, or if he's backing these guys up whatsoever, but he knows the situation with his penalty. I mean, George has actually caught these guys just marginally. It's the first time George has done that this race. But yeah, the Titan Man is not easing up. Look at this. Look at this. This is tight stuff. It's like a pinball between them now because how the Titan Man is just not letting up with what's gonna be 2 laps remaining.
I don't think Mitoki's gonna make the move. I think she's gonna wait till the last lap to do it. Or sorry.
She knows what her mistake was earlier on in the race, and also a few days ago when she made the move and where the move was made and everything. Look at this. Redfire's backing off. He knows he'll have DRS here, and that will help a lot. Mitoki may have to get her way through on the Titan Man. That might be what does it. FX7 Danny has gone up another place, getting the upper edge there.
I think Mitoki is smart enough to know that she cannot give that Mercedes any type of DRS to play with.
The academies she used to race for, by the way, the cars she used to race for, Mercedes and Red Bull. Deja vu here, I guess you could say. Will the Titan Man back him up again in this corner? No, that's not the case. But I think the thing for Redfire Tiger is he knows he's in a situation here where he's the one with DRS, not just Mitoki.
This is true, yeah, that's what I was just about to say. Redfire, he knows that he has that DRS from Titan, so that is definitely playing in his favor here. Although Mitoki does have a fully charged ready, although Redfire does as well, so it's basically going to come down to who has the faster straight line speed car.
It has been over a year since a female driver won an RPL. We're looking at that as a possibility right now. The first time in F1 cars it could be. The first time in Tier 2 cars it would be for RPL. Redfire Tiger is also looking to salvage his championship hopes as well. He could be going into Abu Dhabi next week with a 3-point difference with George. Look at the Titan Man backing them up into the final corner. It's going to be a race down to turn 1 with 1 lap remaining. Here we go. 3 wide. Mitoki, can she get both or just one? Side by side. Redfire Tiger is the outside line. Mitoki is the inside. She slides. Redfire stays ahead.
Also gets by Mitoki, and that is going to be vital for Redfire. Redfire definitely has the upper hand now. Although
The Red Fire
Mentoki has
Tiger, you said, has 2 track limit warnings, Polish. He's got to keep it on the road. He knows there's a car between her and Mentoki. The penalty is the difference here. The Titan Man goes for a big lunge. They both go off. Mentoki's through.
Unbelievable. Still 3 wide.
3 wide into the S's. Can you believe it? Red Fire's ahead.
I cannot
What is
believe
going
what I'm
on?
watching right now. Titan takes back the lead. He got a penalty.
And Red Fire is a penalty. Oh, no.
This is Mentoki's
Mentoki
race.
has to go off, but does that get her a warning? No, it doesn't.
This is
Wow.
Mentoki's race to lose right here. She is now in prime position. You have to wonder if the steward's room is going to see that lunge from Titan. That was absolutely
It's going to get
incredible.
tasty, Polish. It's going to get tasty there. I'll tell you that right now.
But this is it.
The
Female
Titan Man
power.
has interfered with that battle, Polish, and it's going to allow girl power on top. The first time in F1 cars a female has won an RPL. Mentoki, the South Korean, wins for the first time. It has happened. Finally, the absolute heartbreak in Singapore can now just wash itself away. The Titan Man finishes second. Red Fire is third. Red Fire only gains 3 points on George. With that being said, that is big in Abu Dhabi.
And I am very much watching the driver's chat. Red Fire typing right now. I am very curious to see what he's going to see.
I don't blame Red Fire for being mad. He has a reason to be. He absolutely does. The Titan Man put Red Fire in a spot to get a penalty right there. And he said, I'm not going down alone, pretty much. That's how that was. FX7 Danny is 5th. Neski, Fools, Goatly, Wavy, and Night Owl round our points. Good result from Neski, by the way. That's a really good shout.
I am so proud of Mentoki. I'm so proud of Ferrari. Ferrari has had just an absolute catastrophic few weeks. Obviously, we had Brazil yesterday, which was good for both Ferrari and Sauber, but it's good to see a Ferrari back on top spot of the podium.
It's also good to see a female back on top. Valkyrie has had a really tough run in the last year since her last win in Zandvoort. She's really not adapted with this game. And last year at the end of F123, a new female came into RPL to really show her name in Imola. And just a week away from JTK's first podium, that race that JTK got his first win in, the race that Mentoki debuted in, it's just fitting that happens between them two drivers who are good friends and have helped each other along the way to get where they have got now. Top step of the podium for Mentoki for the first time. You just love to see that, regardless of what you think of the driver or not. It's great RPL heritage at the end of the day.
That you do, and I can confirm the TP of Ferrari. Invade is going absolutely wild in the Ferrari chat. He is so excited, as he should be. Like I said, it's been a long time since Ferrari has had a good race.
It's also the first South Korean win on RPL, too.
There you go. First female win in F1, first South Korean to win in RPL. History being made here in Qatar.
So here's your final results here with the penalties on the screen. Mentoki wins the race ahead of Titan Man and Red Fire. Good comeback from Red Fire, by the way. George is 4th. Danny is 5th. Neski, very good shout out there in 6th. Fools had a lot of contact with Night Owl tonight. He might see the steward's room, but he is 7th for now. Goatly, Wavy, and Night Owl round out the points. And you see we lost 4 from this event. We've got a Constructors champion now. With that being said, Mercedes. They have had their hard work pay off for yet another time in Tier 2. For them, they are champions. And the championship for the first time has been clinched in Qatar in the Constructors' sake. With that being said, Mercedes, they have won what is their 2nd title in RPL Tier 2. They disrupted Red Bull from going 8 in a row in Season 8. Now, they have won the championship in Season 14. 6 seasons since their first in Tier 2. You've just got to wonder with Mercedes, although Vodka was not here throughout the second half of the season, his work at the start of the season really paid off for them in order to win the Constructors' Championship. Red Fire Tiger 2, of course, Lennon reserving quite a bit for the team. All different drivers who paid their fair share for Mercedes have given them this great effort to win the Constructors' title.
And obviously, do we even have to ask who the driver of the day was? I think it's pretty obvious. who it should be.
Yeah.
Mitoki,
Yeah. I mean,
absolutely phenomenal drive.
it looked like she was out of it. Even it looked like she was out of it afterwards when the Titan Man and Redfire took back the top 2 spots into the S section. I would also give 2 contenders up there, by the way. Sorry, Polish. I was going to say, I give 2 contenders up there for second and third. Neski and Redfire. Good comeback from Redfire. I just wish it was a bit cleaner on his aspect in the result it paid off for. I don't know why. I get the Titan Man interfering the way he did if he felt like he was cost by Redfire for one of the track limit warnings, but to do it like that, I don't want to put any blame on anybody. But
You gotta
that's
wonder
not right.
if that doesn't happen, does Redfire win this race?
Does Mintucky even win this race? With that being said, too, because Mintucky was being backed up and Redfire was being backed up from them too. George was catching them so much in those last few laps.
George is saying he will see everyone in the stewards room, and he's very aware of what's going to happen this
Good.
race. But
He should be.
I was going to say, this was a far cry from Imola. Obviously, this was probably the better race as far as the racing goes, although this was definitely not as clean as Imola. We had a few questionable moments. Obviously, the whole thing with Foles and Redfire and other Mercedes name, can't think of it.
It's all good. Night Owl last week.
Night Owl, thank you.
Night Owl this week as well. Yeah.
You got that whole thing, and then the whole thing with Titan and Redfire.
Speaking of Mercedes, by the way, I just want to say this for a moment, Polish. I'm sorry. I just want to say, what a good send-off for Josh as well, because he's stepping down from TP, giving up to Owen. It's a good send-off for him as well in terms of the management side of things, though, as well. That's a great sight to see for them clinching the Constructors' Championship. It shows that Mercedes' powerful lineup that they started back in January and then changing TPs a little bit after then really has paid off. So,
absolutely,
yeah.
it's nice to have a Constructors Championship in your last season. Can't really say much more. Just a good feeling, I'm sure.
Yeah, and we're gonna find out what happens in that stewards room. A lot of popcorn for that. That's, oh boy.
So looking at the standings going into Abu Dhabi, you said George has a 3-point lead on McFire, correct?
Well, that would have been if Redfire won the race. He's got a 12-point lead as things stand right now.
Okay, so this is going to be interesting.
Pending any penalties and everything. Yeah, I know.
So looking forward to next week. You got to think Redfire has to win this race in Abu Dhabi. To have any chance.
He does. I don't think there's really any other outcome based on that. If he had beat Mintucky and didn't get that penalty, maybe you could argue he didn't have to win, but now it looks like he does. We do have a Drivers' Championship going to Abu Dhabi, and we're going to be going to Abu Dhabi next week for Tier 2, folks. The Constructors is settled, the Drivers is not. Stay with us tomorrow for F2 and F1, back at the same place with the same grace we saw today. That was crazy. Well, we'll see you next week for Tier 2 in Abu Dhabi if you don't catch us for tomorrow's races, both in Qatar, F2 and F1. Ryan Searles, Polish Hammer, signing off. We'll catch you then. Have a good night.